In my freshman year, the most respected woman in the city's high society suddenly offered to sponsor me. Just as I was about to reach for her delicate, fair hand, a series of comments popped up in my vision, like a live social media feed. This pathetic side character thinks he's found a savior, but the female lead is just pissed at her nephew and decided to sponsor a male student to spite him. He's handsome and an orphan, so he's the perfect pawn. He's going to be kicked out soon anyway. The male lead's older brother is already on his way to a pet store to buy their aunt her favorite kind of cat to cheer her up. A big reason the female lead likes the male lead is because of his cat-like features. Who would have thought that under that calm, self-possessed exterior, she's a total cat fanatic? If you're willing, sign the contract. The woman's cool, detached voice pulled me back from the scrolling comments. I looked down at the contract, at the $300,000 per year she was offering. I fought to suppress the cat ears that were threatening to pop out from my hair in my excitement. My eyes shining, I nodded eagerly. Yes, I'm willing. My ears were misbehaving, twitching just beneath my scalp, desperate to spring free. It was an itchy, annoying sensation, but I forced myself to hold still. I couldn't scare off this kind woman who was willing to help me. Once I had them under control, I quickly picked up the pen and signed my name. Is there anything else I need to do? The comments had mentioned that Miss Sterling was only sponsoring me to make her nephew jealous. What was my role in all this? Her expression was cold and distant. Her gaze swept disdainfully over the peeling, green-tinged walls of my tiny apartment and the faded t-shirt I was wearing. Finally, her eyes, cool and emotionless, landed on my thin face. First, get a new set of clothes. Tomorrow, you'll move into the Sterling villa. I nodded obediently and followed her assistant out to go shopping, planning to study the comments and learn how to be a proper, villainous side character. But they all said I was just a disposable pawn in the main couple's drama. They said I'd be dropped before I even set foot in the Sterling house, as soon as the main couple made up. But if she withdrew her sponsorship, I'd go hungry. I wouldn't even be able to afford dried fish. To protect this hard-won opportunity, I gathered my courage, ditched the assistant, and yanked open the door of the departing Porsche, sliding into the back seat just before it pulled away. I met the cold, hard eyes of Elizabeth Sterling, framed by her gold-rimmed glasses. I nervously twisted the hem of my shirt. I heard there's going to be a thunderstorm tonight, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I'm really scared of thunder. Auntie, can I go home with you tonight? The comments exploded. Holy crap. This isn't a side character, he's a full-on green tea bitch. That soft voice, trying to seduce the female lead while the male lead is away. Calling her auntie. Just die already. There's no way the female lead is falling for such a cheap trick. She only has eyes for her precious nephew. Her dad and the male lead's dad were sworn brothers. They're not even related by blood. They're totally going to get married. Don't forget, she also has a soft spot for cats, haha. She's the ultimate cat person. Because my transformation wasn't complete, my eyes were still a cat-like amber-flecked black. Right now, widened with fear, the corners of my eyes were tinged red. Elizabeth looked down at me, her expression unreadable, but I saw her unconsciously rub the hand where I was clutching her sleeve. What did you just call me? Her voice was cool, but with a barely perceptible rasp. Remembering what the comments said about her loving cats, I summoned my courage, about to repeat myself. Her gaze hardened, and she yanked her arm away. The force was so strong I stumbled backward, barely managing to catch the half-closed car door to keep from cracking my head on the pavement. Elizabeth was already back to her usual indifferent self. Her eyes were fixed on a point in the distance, over my shoulder. Standing there was a boy, bundled up in an expensive raincoat. He was staring at me, his eyes red-rimmed, clutching a white cat to his chest as if he'd been deeply wronged. When he saw Elizabeth looking at him, his eyes welled up with tears. He abruptly threw the cat to the ground and ran off. Without a moment's hesitation, Elizabeth slammed the car door shut. "Follow him," she ordered the driver. I was left choking on a cloud of exhaust fumes. I stood up, my back aching from the fall, feeling a pang of frustration. Dejected, I walked over and picked up the abandoned cat. 2 of its 4 legs were broken. No wonder it hadn't run, even after being so frightened. Its mouth was bleeding a little too, but without the sponsorship, I had no money to get it treated. I hugged the cat tighter, a sour feeling rising in my chest. I carried it back to my leaky, dilapidated shack. I crushed my last small bag of dried fish, mixed it with water, and fed it to the white cat, one mouthful at a time. I didn't dare sleep all night, my eyes wide as I watched over the barely breathing animal. As I rubbed my eyes, I caught a glimpse of a tall, cool figure standing in the moonlight. She had changed into a black blouse, which made her look even more refined and aloof. Her eyes were slightly narrowed as she leaned against the wall, watching me. I had no idea how long she'd been there. A clap of thunder roared. I quickly scooped up the cat and ran over to her. "Own, Auntie." Elizabeth frowned. "Aren't you afraid of thunder? Why didn't you go to the Sterling house?" My heart leaped. "You're still willing to sponsor me?" Her gaze fell to the cat I was clutching protectively. In the moonlight, her sharp features softened slightly. "The contract is signed. I can't go back on my word." The male lead ran back to his own house and refuses to see the female lead. She got mad and went to find the side character again. LOL, the side character actually thinks she cares about him. So gross. Even though she won't say it, the whole point of sponsoring him was to make the male lead jealous. This idiot is too dumb to realize it. The second he's not useful anymore, she'll toss him aside again. I held the cat and followed Elizabeth, ignoring the mocking comments. I didn't care what they said. As long as I had food in my stomach, could go to school, and could get the cat treated, I was more than satisfied. Once I understood what the comments meant, that Elizabeth was using me to make Liam jealous, I started doing a lot of bad things to prove my usefulness, all while the comments cursed me out. I would proactively serve her food at dinner, give her a head massage before bed. I even made a point of getting into the car she sent to pick Liam up from school. Liam refused to sit in the front passenger seat, so I shamelessly took it myself. That made him so angry he refused to go home, threatening to go stay with his childhood friend instead. The atmosphere in the car was tense. I looked at Elizabeth, my eyes shining. "Snowball is almost better. Do you want to come with me to see him?" Snowball was the name I'd given the white cat. Because Liam was slightly allergic to cat fur, he had been staying at the vet clinic. The light in the car was dim. Elizabeth had one hand on the steering wheel, her eyes no longer on the back seat in the rearview mirror. She looked at me, her eyes narrowed, a slight smile playing on her lips. "All right." Liam, who had one foot out of the Porsche, froze. He sat back down and huffed, his voice tight with anger.
"No."
"It's your birthday today, Aunt Liz. You promised you'd spend it with me. How can you go with this lowlife?" He leaned over from the back seat, wrapping his arms around Elizabeth's in a possessive hug. Elizabeth's indifferent gaze flickered to me. I obediently got out of the car, letting the wind from the passing luxury vehicle whip at my clothes. But Elizabeth had forgotten one thing. It was the staff's day off. The villa gates were locked. I couldn't get in. So I curled up outside, staring blankly with my cat-like eyes. The late autumn night wind was bone-chillingly cold. Still, it was much better than the days when I had nothing to eat and no warm clothes to wear. After that day, Liam and Elizabeth's relationship improved significantly. Elizabeth's attitude towards me also changed, from cold and stern to something gentler. She would ask about my day and bring me nice gifts when she came back from business trips. If Liam got a custom-tailored suit, I would get a tie. If Liam got a huge bouquet of roses, I would get a single tulip. She even started having the nanny pack an extra lunch for me when she sent food for Liam. Realizing my sponsorship was safe for now, I finally started to relax and focus more on my studies. After all, just as the comment said, I would be abandoned by her eventually. It was better to learn as much as I could before that happened. Once Snowball had fully recovered, Liam brought him home. Despite his mild allergy, he would put on his airtight raincoat to play with the cat. Maybe it's true that pets are more attached to the person who buys them. One day, while I was doing my homework, Snowball, seemingly at Liam's silent command, leaped at me and raked his claws down my arm. Blood instantly welled up from the deep scratches. Elizabeth came home at that exact moment and saw what had happened.
She frowned.
Liam immediately ran to her, his eyes red. "Aunt Liz," he cried, hugging her tight waist, "they say cats are the most spiritual animals. This lowlife has been taking care of Snowball for so long, and Snowball still scratched him. It must be because he's bad luck. Kick him out, please." This was the first time Liam had acted so clingy since his tantrum. Elizabeth buried her face in his neck, her expression softening. She then glanced coolly at me. I stood in the middle of the living room, clutching my bleeding arm, at a complete loss. My eyes stung, and tears welled up. Before she could say anything, I lowered my head and obediently started packing my things. The moment I stepped out of the villa, a notification sound dinged on my phone. I lit up the screen. It was a message from Elizabeth, her profile picture a stark black square. 199, Laurel Canyon Drive. Go there for now. I'll come see you when I have time. The female lead just thinks the side character is useful, so she's keeping him around. The next time the male lead throws a fit, she can just bring him back. Is there going to be another misunderstanding between the main couple? No way. Liam's older sister is coming back from abroad soon. She adores her little brother, so she'll definitely help him get rid of the side character. Haha, the sister loves cats too. She used to have a black cat. I guess no cat lover can resist a sweet, cat-like boy like the male lead. Watching the comments fly by, I pursed my lips and hailed a cab to the address Elizabeth had given me. One of the clauses in the contract stated that I must strictly follow the sponsor's instructions. Elizabeth could withdraw her investment in me at any time, but I couldn't break the contract. If I gave her a reason, I wouldn't be able to afford the penalty. I never expected that the scratch from Snowball would trigger my heat cycle, and I certainly never expected Elizabeth to show up tonight. Now here I was, standing at the door with fluffy black cat ears and a matching tail drooping behind me, clutching a pillow, my eyes red and wide. I stared at Elizabeth, frozen. My ears twitched uncontrollably. Own, Auntie, I stammered. The ears and tail wouldn't retract. I quickly scampered upstairs and hid under the covers, forgetting to lock the door behind me. The door creaked open. The bed dipped slightly. A faint scent of gardenias filled the room. I huddled under the blanket, feeling a pair of intense, predatory eyes on me. Finally, on the verge of suffocating, I poked my head out, my eyes swimming with tears. Elizabeth was tall. Sitting on the edge of the bed, all I could see was her immaculate blouse and the small white first aid kit she had placed beside her. My ears twitched. Before I could react, a hand reached out and pulled me from my cocoon. I struggled frantically. My secret was out. Oh no, the authorities are going to take me away. Meow, meow, meow. In my panic, all I could manage were cat sounds. I clapped a hand over my mouth and looked up, cautiously gauging her reaction. The room was dark. Her features were shadowed, her eyes cast low. Her gaze swept over my fluffy ears, her expression still unreadable. But the hand on my waist was gentle, stroking me softly. When she spoke, her voice was raspy. What are you hiding from? Don't be afraid. I won't tell anyone. Come out. Let me treat your arm. I obediently emerged from the covers. I watched as she opened the first aid kit and used a cotton swab to disinfect the scratches. Because I hadn't cleaned them right away, the wound had scabbed over. It stung when she touched it, but I clenched my teeth and didn't make a sound. In the heavy silence, she spoke again, her voice soft. Liam has been spoiled by his sister and me. I've already punished him for what happened today. Don't be too upset. And I'll make him change the way he addresses you. LOL. Her idea of punishing the male lead was taking away his phone and making him go to bed early. You're just too in love, girl. What's wrong with calling him a lowlife? That's what he is. A gold digger who pretends to be a cat to seduce her, even meowing. What a green tea bitch. True love is true love. Even if the male lead does nothing, she'll still love him and never change. This side character is wasting his efforts. I read the comments and silently breathed a sigh of relief. They all thought my ears and tail were fake. So, Elizabeth probably thought so too. She must. Reassured, I relaxed and smiled at her, my cat-like eyes crinkling. It's okay. I'm not angry. After all, it wasn't the first time Liam had called me a lowlife. If you're being sponsored, you have to give something in return. A few insults were better than an empty stomach. Elizabeth's movements stilled. She said softly. For some reason, I felt a chill emanate from her. She seemed to have reverted to her old, unapproachable self. I asked Elizabeth to call the school and get me an excused absence. With my ears and tail out, I couldn't exactly go to class. These past few days, she came to see me almost every day, saying she was worried about my wound getting infected. But catfolk heal fast. The scratches had already faded to a faint scar. Sometimes she would even stay the night. I'd wake up to find the side of my bed indented, as if someone had been sitting there, watching me for a long time. On the last day of my heat cycle, I finally worked up the courage. My ears flattened against my head. I walked into her study. Under her dark, intense gaze, I took a few more steps forward. Do you want to touch them? My ears, I mean. They're about to go away. Before I could finish, my drooping tail was swiftly snipped from behind with a pair of scissors. The first morning in the Sterling Villa hit me like a shockwave. Marble floors gleamed beneath my slippers. Walls hung with heavy oil paintings that seemed to watch my every move, and the smell of polished wood and expensive perfume filled the air. I clutched Snowball close, half expecting him to bolt for the nearest shadow. The staff regarded me as if I were an intruder, a poorly written character in their perfect, orderly lives. "Breakfast is in the dining room," said a maid with a tight smile, her eyes narrowing slightly at me. "Mr. Liam will be down shortly." I nodded, trying to look composed. My ears twitched under my hair, betraying my nerves. Even Snowball, normally calm, seemed wary of the polished hallways, his tiny paws slipping occasionally on the marble. Commentary popped up in my vision, as usual. "Oh look, the pawn finally enters the lion's den. Good luck surviving the staff without being trampled. Don't get too comfortable, idiot. They're already plotting how to get rid of you." I swallowed hard and followed the maid, pretending not to notice the cold stares from the others. Every step felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of judgment. Elizabeth appeared at the top of the grand staircase, her black blouse immaculate, her expression unreadable. Snowball mewed softly in my arms, and I felt a flicker of courage. "Good morning," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. I'll be careful." Elizabeth's gaze swept over me, sharp and calculating, then softened, just for a fraction of a second, when her eyes landed on Snowball. "You seem attached," she said, almost casually, though I caught the slight curve of her lips that betrayed her amusement. Commentary erupted, as always. "Ha! Finally. Something useful. Your cat is your only redeeming feature in this hell of a household."
Careful, though.
"She's testing you. One wrong move, and you're back on the street." The dining room was quiet, too quiet. Liam sat at the table, fiddling with a silver spoon, eyes downcast. Snowball leaped from my arms to explore the chair legs, sending a porcelain cup teetering dangerously close to the edge. I dove to catch it just in time, earning a sharp intake of breath from a maid nearby. "You must be careful," Elizabeth said from the doorway, her voice calm, measured, as if she were weighing every syllable against some invisible scale. "The villa has rules. Broken rules have consequences." I nodded, pressing Snowball close. He mewed in agreement or maybe protest. Sometimes it was hard to tell the difference. A whisper drifted past me from the hall, low and hesitant. "Did you see him? The boy with the cat?" I froze, my ears flattening. The voice was familiar in tone but unfamiliar in intent, like a half-forgotten dream. I glanced toward the servants, but they continued their work as if nothing had been said. My pulse quickened. Elizabeth approached, her heels silent against the marble. "You hear things you shouldn't," she said softly. "It's best to ignore them." I forced a smile. "Yes, Auntie." "The pawn continues to flail under scrutiny, but he's learning."
Slowly.
"Kind of." Breakfast passed in tense silence, punctuated only by the soft clinking of cutlery and Snowball's occasional exploratory leaps. Every so often, I caught a lingering glance from the staff, murmured words behind cupped hands, all of it charged with unspoken suspicion. After the meal, Elizabeth led me through the villa, showing me my quarters, the study, and the small library I was allowed access to. "You'll stay within these walls unless instructed otherwise," she said, her gaze lingering on me. "And you will maintain proper behavior at all times. This includes interactions with staff, with Liam, and with your companion." She nodded toward Snowball. I bowed slightly, ears twitching. "Yes, Auntie." "Understood." As she left, the hallway felt alive with tension. A distant shadow moved behind the frosted glass of a side door. A soft whisper, too faint to catch clearly, drifted through the corridor. "Watch the boy, he's not what he seems." I shivered, holding Snowball tighter. The villa, for all its luxury, had already begun revealing its teeth. That night, I lay in my quarters, ears flattened, tail curled tightly around my legs. Snowball purred against my chest, a small warmth in the silent darkness. Commentary popped up for the first time in hours. "Congratulations, idiot. You're officially under house arrest with a cat as your only ally. Good luck." And yet, for the first time, I didn't feel entirely afraid. The villa was cold, the staff suspicious, and Elizabeth still unreadable, but somewhere under it all, a faint, sharp spark of possibility glimmered. Somewhere in the shadows, I felt the eyes of the unknown watching, waiting for me to falter. And I knew I couldn't. Not yet. The first hint of her arrival was the quiet echo of heels on marble. Then the soft click of the front doors opening. I was in the library, Snowball curled on my lap, trying to study from a thick leather-bound book Elizabeth had given me. My ears twitched instinctively at the sound. The staff moved subtly, almost like a ripple through the villa, their eyes darting to the entrance. And then I saw her. Tall, poised, perfectly dressed, and with eyes that seemed to see right through me. Liam's older sister had returned from abroad, and she was already scanning the room like a predator assessing prey. Commentary immediately appeared. Oh, fantastic. Here comes the adult version of a cat ready to shred your soul. Good luck, pawn. You're about to be evaluated by someone who makes Auntie look like a fluffy kitten. I froze, Snowball hissing softly in my lap at my sudden tension. Her gaze swept the room with unnerving precision, lingering on me long enough to make my ears flatten involuntarily. She stopped, lips curving ever so slightly. So, this is the famous pawn, she said, her voice smooth and sharp, like silk slicing over glass. I've heard interesting things. I swallowed hard. Why yes. I mean hello, miss. I mean welcome back, ma'am. Commentary snickered. Wow, what a disaster. Did he just stutter like a nervous kitten? Bravo. She arched an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed, then let her gaze drift to Snowball. The cat twitched its ears, looking back at her cautiously, as if it, too, felt her power. You seem very attached, she said, eyes narrowing. To him, I mean. She gestured toward me. And he to you. Curious. I forced a smile, trying to appear calm. My tail flicked lightly behind me, too lightly, and she caught the motion instantly. Her eyes sharpened. Commentary was relentless.
Yep, he's doomed.
Cat ears, tail, nerves, and awkward charm all in one pathetic package. Maybe if he meows, she'll take pity? Don't try it, idiot. I take care of him, I said quickly. He's been through a lot. My words stumbled. I straightened my back, ears flattening further. I protect him. Her lips quirked into the faintest of smiles, but it didn't reach her eyes. I see. She circled the library slowly, hands clasped behind her back, stopping at the far end. And the villa's other inhabitants, staff, visitors, are they aware of your unique presence? I felt my heart thump in my chest. This was the real test. My claws itched for control, but I had to play it carefully. Yes, ma'am, I said, voice steady now. I follow the rules. I obey. I don't cause trouble. Snowball, sensing my anxiety, leapt to my shoulder and batted at a nearby stack of books. The crash echoed through the library. I froze. The sister's gaze shot toward me, sharp as a knife. Interesting, she murmured, and for the first time, her smile reached her eyes, a flash of amusement mixed with calculation. Commentary, finally. A tiny spark of hope. But don't celebrate yet, idiot. She's not impressed. She's amused. Those are very different things in her world. I bowed slightly, careful not to lose my composure. I apologize, ma'am. I will clean it up immediately. She didn't respond directly. Instead, she leaned slightly closer, eyes narrowing like a cat inspecting a mouse. You have reflexes, she said softly, almost a whisper. Unusual. Alert. Quick. I blinked. Yes, ma'am, I whispered, unsure if it was a compliment or a warning. She straightened, turning on her heel, every movement precise, deliberate. I'll be watching you. Every action. Every word. Do not disappoint me. With that, she left the library, leaving me and Snowball trembling slightly in her wake. I exhaled slowly, trying to calm the racing of my heart. Her presence had shifted the entire villa, subtle but absolute. The staff moved more cautiously, their whispers sharper, their eyes lingering on me a fraction too long. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I realized this. Survival wouldn't just be about obedience anymore. I had to be clever, perceptive, and most importantly, untouchable in ways they couldn't predict. Snowball jumped from my shoulder to the desk, pawing at my notes. I looked at him and murmured, "We'll have to be extra careful now, little one." The cat's got to stay one step ahead of the lioness. Commentary. Oh, look at him, talking to a cat like it's a strategic partner. Absolutely pathetic. I ignored it. For the first time, I felt the tiniest flicker of determination amidst the fear. I wouldn't just survive. I had to thrive. And with Liam's sister now in the villa, the game had just gotten infinitely more dangerous. The note felt heavier in my pocket than I had expected. A few lines of ink, carefully folded, yet somehow it carried the weight of an entire strategy. Elizabeth had instructed me to deliver it personally to a man she called Mr. Hartley, an influential figure in the city whose favor could shift fortunes. Remember, Elizabeth's voice had been sharp and cold as ice when she handed it to me. Do not be noticed. Any mistake, and you risk everything. Understood? Yes, ma'am. I had replied, ears twitching nervously. My tail curled tightly behind me, like a coiled spring of tension. Snowball had been perched on my shoulder, tail flicking impatiently. And you think I'll let you out of this unscathed? I murmured to him. He responded with a soft meow, as if mocking my optimism. The villa gates closed behind me, leaving the sprawling gardens and ornate walls behind. The streets beyond were bustling, and I felt painfully aware of every glance, every movement. I had to act natural, invisible, competent. Not easy when your ears occasionally betray your nervous twitching. I ducked into narrow alleys, slipping past merchants and street performers, clinging to the shadows. But Snowball, ever unpredictable, decided this was the perfect moment to chase a stray pigeon, leaping from my shoulder and tangling his claws in my coat. I yelped as he dragged me a few feet before regaining control. People stared. A merchant muttered something under his breath, giving me a glare sharp enough to cut glass. Commentary. And there it is. The chaos you promised. Brilliant. Pro tip. Maybe next time, leave the cat at home. Or better yet, in a cage. Finally, I arrived at the imposing building Hartley called home. I tucked Snowball into my coat and approached the door, mind racing with contingency plans. My ears twitched nervously. Every shadow seemed alive, every passerby a potential threat. Hartley himself answered, a tall man with sharp features and a discerning gaze. He looked at me as if I were a particularly strange cat. And you are, he asked. An envoy, I said quickly, holding the note delicately as though it were made of spun glass. From Miss Sterling. He raised an eyebrow, peering past me at the protruding tip of Snowball's tail. Interesting. Is this standard practice? Yes, sir. I murmured, trying to appear confident. Standard practice. The note changed hands without incident, though I felt my pulse thundering in my ears. Mission accomplished, or so I thought. Returning to the villa, I noticed Liam waiting in the driveway, arms crossed, expression stormy. His eyes flicked to Snowball, then to me and narrowed. Where have you been? He demanded, voice sharp. Sneaking around like some lowlife spy? I swallowed, forcing a calm tone. I had a task from Annie. It was important. Liam's nostrils flared. Important for her, maybe. But what about me? You get all this attention while I... Commentary. Oh, here comes the jealousy subplot. Classic. Poor pawn doesn't stand a chance. Note. He's still the lowlife in Liam's narrative. He's really doubling down on that role. Elizabeth appeared quietly, her sharp heels clicking on the marble. Enough, Liam, she said, voice cool, cutting through the tension like a blade. She glanced at me, and for the first time, her expression softened, just barely. He completed the task. Well done. My ears flattened, tail twitching with relief, though Liam's glare didn't lessen. The power dynamics had subtly shifted. Elizabeth's approval felt tangible now, almost like a prize I could reach if I played carefully. Snowball, never content to remain calm, darted suddenly across the hallway, colliding with a vase. It toppled, smashing into pieces. My stomach sank. Snowball. I whispered, but Elizabeth merely raised an eyebrow, lips twitching in faint amusement. Chaos accompanies you, doesn't it? I quickly gathered the fragments, trying to appear composed, while Liam muttered under his breath. Yet, despite the mess, I felt a spark of pride. I had delivered the note. I had survived the encounter with Mr. Hartley. And, most importantly, Elizabeth's subtle attention was no longer entirely indifferent. As I settled back into my quarters that night, ears still flicking from residual tension, tail curled around me protectively, I realized something crucial. Surviving in Elizabeth's world required more than obedience. It required cleverness, calm reflexes, and the ability to navigate chaos, both feline and human. And Snowball, in all his unpredictable glory, was both my ally and my greatest test. The villa was quiet, draped in silver moonlight that turned marble and polished wood into spectral reflections. I clutched Snowball close, his tiny body vibrating with excitement. Or maybe trepidation. My ears twitched constantly, alert for every whisper of sound. I had decided to explore the gardens. There were rumors, whispers among the staff, about hidden alcoves and forgotten pathways. Curiosity gnawed at me. And, honestly, part of me wanted to prove that I could move unseen, a shadow in Elizabeth's illuminated world. Commentary popped up immediately. Oh, brilliant. Sneaking around at night. What could possibly go wrong? Yes, pawn. Prove your feline stealth skills. Or face total humiliation. The gardens were vast, a labyrinth of hedges and sculptures. Moonlight glinted off fountains, and the scent of night-blooming jasmine filled the air. Snowball leapt lightly from my shoulder, exploring confidently while I followed, keeping my step soft. A narrow path led to a secluded wing I hadn't seen before. Windows glimmered faintly, and through the glass, I caught glimpses of Elizabeth's private study, papers neatly stacked, a half-finished painting of a cityscape leaning against the wall, a notebook open with meticulous handwriting. I crouched behind a hedge, curious despite myself. There was more to Elizabeth than the stern, imperious woman everyone saw. She had hobbies, routines, and small vulnerabilities that no one would expect. A sudden rustle startled me. My heart leaped. I spun around and froze. Elizabeth was standing at the edge of the path, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. The moonlight glinted off her glasses. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly, almost a whisper. I bowed quickly, ears flattening, tail curled tightly around my legs. I just wanted to see. My voice faltered, and I realized how ridiculous I must look, crouched in the hedges with a cat tucked under my arm. Her stern gaze softened, just slightly. "Curiosity can be dangerous," she murmured, stepping closer. "But it can also reveal things." Commentary. Oh, the first crack in her armor.
Pay attention, idiot.
And yes, the cat is cute, but he's still hopeless. Before I could respond, a flicker of flame caught my eye. A small fire had started near the edge of the gardens, likely from a neglected candle or lantern. Smoke curled upward, the scent acrid against the jasmine. Elizabeth's eyes snapped to the fire, then back to me. "Stay close." I nodded, adrenaline kicking in. Snowball hissed and darted ahead, claws scraping the stones as we rushed to contain the flames. I grabbed a nearby bucket of water, while Elizabeth pulled a garden hose. Working together, we doused the fire before it spread, my heart pounding in my chest, ears flattened in tension, tail twitching like a metronome. For the first time, our actions synchronized effortlessly, her precision, my reflexes, Snowball adding chaos and comic relief by knocking over a second bucket. The flames were out. Smoke still curled lazily, and I stood, panting, drenched from head to toe. Elizabeth studied me silently for a moment, then reached out, brushing damp hair from my forehead. "You have instincts," she said quietly. Her voice was softer now, almost vulnerable. "You pay attention to details. You act before thinking. It's useful." I blinked, ears twitching. "I thank you, Auntie." She turned, walking back toward the villa, her heels clicking softly. "Stay close. There are more shadows than you realize here. And not all of them are harmless." As I followed her back to the villa, Snowball tucked securely in my arms, I realized something. The night had shifted something fundamental between us. Trust had grown, fragile and unspoken. Control had been tested, subtly negotiated. And an odd intimacy lingered in the quiet space between us, a tension neither of us fully acknowledged, yet impossible to ignore. The villa loomed behind us, grand and silent, hiding secrets that I now understood were not mine alone to uncover. And somehow, for the first time, I felt ready to face them. The morning light spilled across the villa gardens, painting everything in gold and shadow. I had just finished breakfast, careful not to spill the tea Elizabeth had insisted I serve properly, when Snowball's ears twitched sharply. I followed his gaze and froze. A sleek, black-furred creature with eyes like molten amber slinked across the lawn. Its movements were fluid, predatory, almost unnervingly confident. And it stopped just long enough to meet my eyes, tail flicking deliberately. Snowball hissed, his tiny fur bristling. The black cat, no, something more than a cat, approached, circling him with a calculated grace. I could feel tension radiating through the air, sharp and tangible. Elizabeth appeared in the doorway, perfectly composed, her expression unreadable. She watched silently as the two cats faced off, and I realized with a jolt, this wasn't a coincidence. I crouched slightly, trying to anticipate the black cat's next move. Snowball arched his back, claws out, eyes locked. The garden became a chessboard, and I was no longer just an observer. I had to make a move. Stay calm, I whispered to Snowball. Let's outthink it. The black cat lunged suddenly, claws swiping at Snowball's tail. I reacted instinctively, catching Snowball mid-leap and rolling aside. My ears flattened, tail twitching, heart pounding, but my mind was sharp. I spotted a nearby hedge, thick and low. A quick toss of a garden ornament, a small, harmless ceramic bird, distracted the intruder momentarily. Snowball bolted from my arms, circling the black cat, who followed with calculating precision. Elizabeth's lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile. Interesting tactics, she murmured, voice soft but precise. You adapt quickly. That will serve you well. I froze, aware that every movement was being judged, every instinct observed. Using the advice I'd gleaned from the comments feed, I improvised. I tapped into Snowball's chaotic energy, directing it strategically, narrowing the space, forcing the rival back, using agility and misdirection instead of brute strength. Commentary: holy crap, he's actually thinking for himself. Pawn evolution in progress. After a tense standoff, the black cat finally retreated, disappearing as mysteriously as it had appeared. Snowball pranced back to me, tail high, prideful and triumphant. Elizabeth's eyes lingered on me, calculating. That was clever. And necessary. Her gaze softened ever so slightly. You're more capable than I gave you credit for. I exhaled, relief and pride mingling. The villa seemed lighter somehow, the shadows less oppressive. For the first time, I felt a spark of agency, not just a pawn, but someone who could act, strategize, survive. Snowball nuzzled my hand, purring triumphantly, as if acknowledging our shared victory. I rubbed behind his ears, a small smile on my face. Together, we had turned a potential disaster into a demonstration of skill, strategy, and trust. And for the first time, I realized that chaos could be a weapon if wielded with intelligence. The villa's corridors were hushed, almost reverent in the late afternoon light. Snowball padded softly beside me, ears twitching at every faint sound. I was delivering Elizabeth's correspondence when I heard voices, hushed but urgent, drifting from the study at the end of the hall. Curiosity, that irresistible feline impulse, drew me closer. Two staff members, normally polite and reserved, were speaking in low, hurried tones. If she knew, everything would collapse. The inheritance, the arrangements, Liam, it's all too fragile. I don't know how long we can keep this secret. The boy, he's noticing things. I've seen him listening, watching. Someone might slip up. I froze, ears flattening as comprehension dawned. Family secrets, hidden schemes. Perhaps involving Elizabeth herself, or Liam's sister. The threads were tangled, dangerous, and entirely invisible to outsiders. Commentary: cryptic now. Trust is currency. Silence is survival. Choose wisely. I felt a strange thrill, like Snowball purring against my hand. Chaotic, unpredictable, but comforting. My mind raced. I had options. I could exploit the information, gain leverage with Elizabeth or Liam's sister. I could tell Elizabeth and appear loyal, or I could stay silent and survive quietly. I took a careful step back, hiding in the shadow of a doorway. Every instinct screamed that exposure would be catastrophic. Yet the temptation to act, to use this knowledge, stirred something deep within me, a flicker of agency I hadn't known I possessed. The conversation ended abruptly. Footsteps approached, light but deliberate. I pressed myself against the wall, Snowball curling into my coat for warmth. Liam's sister emerged, elegant as ever, sharp-eyed, moving with precision. She paused, scanning the corridor. I held my breath, ears flattened. Commentary: you're caught in the crossfire now, pawn. One false move and it's over. She moved past without a glance, leaving the villa's secrets intact, for now. I exhaled quietly, mind spinning. I realized the villa was more than a home or a stage for Elizabeth's power. It was a labyrinth of intentions, hidden agendas, and shifting alliances. Every word I overheard, every observation, became a piece of a larger puzzle. Snowball mewed softly, nuzzling my neck. Yes, I murmured, voice low. We need to survive. But maybe we can influence things too. As I retreated to my quarters, ears flicking, tail curled protectively, I felt the weight of choice pressing down. Survival, loyalty, and ambition were no longer separate. They were threads woven tightly together. One misstep could unravel everything. And I, small, cat-like, seemingly insignificant, had to decide which threads I would pull and which I would let remain tangled. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of the villa, gilding the marble floors and casting long, elegant shadows. Snowball padded alongside me as I navigated the corridors, ears twitching at every sound. Today, I wasn't merely delivering letters or observing from the sidelines. I had a plan. A plan that involved an ally I had never expected. Cecilia, one of the junior staff members, was quietly efficient, with a subtle sharpness that went unnoticed by most. Yet, in hushed moments, her glances carried a knowing edge. She had grievances, small but persistent, against the villa hierarchy. And she had noticed me, not just the pawn, not just the cat-like boy, but someone with potential and occasionally audacity. "Careful with that tray," she whispered as I nearly tripped over a rug. "And don't let Elizabeth see you lurking. But I might have use for someone who knows how to move unnoticed." Commentary. Oh look. Finally, an ally. Now the real games begin. Pawn. Tiptoe carefully. Misjudgment here could be fatal, or at least humiliating. We formed an unspoken alliance. Subtle nods in corridors, whispered instructions over tea service, carefully planted distractions, everything designed to nudge events in directions neither Elizabeth nor her nephew could fully anticipate. Minor sabotage became our playground. A misfiled document here, a subtly switched note there, always executed with cat-like precision. Snowball, ever chaotic, was our unpredictable, but loyal, partner in crime. It was during one of these operations that the villa doors opened to admit a new figure, a visitor whose presence immediately altered the rhythm of the household. Tall, composed, with a faint smile that hinted at secrets, the newcomer swept past the staff with an air of quiet command. I felt my ears twitch instinctively, tail brushing the floor. Something about this person suggested external influence, possibly a rival noble, perhaps even a potential ally, and maybe, if the stars were cruelly aligned, a complication that could shift the fragile balance of attention within the villa. Cecilia leaned close, whispering in my ear, "Keep an eye on him. He's more than he appears. And he's dangerous in ways you'll want to understand before Elizabeth does." Our alliance strengthened with each small maneuver, a fragile web of strategy, trust, and playful mischief. Snowball, unpredictable as ever, was both aid and chaos agent, turning our schemes into performances of calculated disorder. And yet, beneath it all, a subtle tension lingered. The visitor's arrival hinted at deeper complications, alliances that could crumble, loyalties that could shift, and stakes that extended far beyond the walls of the Sterling villa. I felt the familiar surge of adrenaline, ears flicking, tail twitching. Cat instincts, strategy, and subtle cunning, everything I had learned over these months, would be tested in the days to come. For the first time, I wasn't just a pawn. I was an active player, navigating a web of intrigue, mischief, and shifting loyalties. And in the heart of the villa, the game was only beginning. The grand hall of the Sterling villa shimmered with crystal chandeliers and gilded mirrors. Guests in elaborate masks glided past, their laughter and whispered conversations a delicate hum beneath the strains of a string quartet. Snowball perched lightly on my shoulder, surveying the scene with feline judgment, while my own ears twitched nervously beneath my hair. Tonight, I was expected to play my part flawlessly, obedient pawn, silent observer, invisible in the elegant chaos. And yet, the villa's intricate web of loyalties, ambitions, and secrets made invisibility a luxury I couldn't afford. I weaved between masked guests, keeping my posture neutral, hands discreetly at my sides. My tail, invisible beneath my coat, flicked occasionally, subtle tension betraying my nerves. Snowball hissed softly at a passing feline-shaped brooch, an omen I ignored. Then came the first test. Liam, in a perfectly tailored suit, leaned toward Elizabeth, whispering something that made her cheeks flush, slightly, imperceptibly. My heart clenched. The meta feed exploded. I adjusted my approach, keeping a careful distance while listening. A minor slip, a tray unbalanced, a dropped glove, could draw attention. I used every trick learned from months in the villa, subtle positioning, silent steps, calculated diversions. My ears twitched with every movement, catching whispers that others missed. Then the visitor arrived, the enigmatic figure who had unsettled the villa's equilibrium. Masked, tall, and confident, he scanned the crowd with a precision that rivaled my own cat-like awareness. Our eyes met briefly. A silent understanding passed between us. This event was a test of instincts, intellect, and subtle courage. A delicate crisis unfolded near the refreshment table, a noble's costume caught in a decorative banner, threatening to topple trays and draw attention to Elizabeth. Instinctively, I leapt forward, part human, part cat, intercepting the cascade of fabric and silverware. My actions, seemingly chaotic, created a controlled diversion. Snowball darted, pawing at the fallen banner like an accomplice in mischief. Elizabeth's eyes briefly found me, a flicker of approval. Or was it surprise? Passing over her face. The visitor's gaze lingered, calculating. Liam's sister, observing from a distance, arched an eyebrow in suspicion. Commentary: chaos managed. Unexpected advantage achieved. Pawn, you might survive the night. The situation resolved itself, but I felt a subtle shift. My place as a pawn was still clear, yet my choices, my reactions, and my instincts had ripple effects. Guests whispered, masks tilted, and alliances subtly adjusted, all influenced by a small, cat-like figure and his equally unpredictable companion. By the end of the evening, as masks were removed and candles dimmed, I realized something important. In a world of strict social hierarchy and hidden agendas, subtle chaos, keen observation, and well-timed intervention could tip the scales. And sometimes, a cat, or a boy who acted like one, was the secret weapon no one expected. Snowball purred triumphantly, brushing against my leg. I straightened, ears still alert, tail curling in satisfaction. Tonight, I had survived. Tonight, I had influenced. And tomorrow, the web of intrigue would only grow more tangled. The morning light slanted through the Sterling Villa's towering windows, painting long stripes across the polished floors. Snowball twined around my ankles, purring softly, oblivious to the tension that had already settled like a storm cloud over the household. Elizabeth had summoned me to her study, a rare summons that carried a weight I couldn't ignore. I smoothed my coat nervously, ears twitching under my hair, tail flicking with instinctive caution. On the desk lay a sealed envelope, thick and official-looking, with a wax stamp I didn't recognize. Elizabeth's expression was unreadable, but the tension in the room suggested trouble. "Open it," she said, voice calm but sharp. "It concerns your contract." I broke the seal, unfolding the heavy parchment. My eyes widened. A clause I had never noticed, buried deep in legalese, threatened to revoke my sponsorship if certain conditions weren't met, some as vague as failure to demonstrate loyalty or usefulness. Before I could process further, the study door opened, and a sharply dressed man entered. He carried an aura of authority, his gaze flicking between Elizabeth and me like a predator assessing prey. "I apologize for the intrusion," he said smoothly, "but my presence is warranted. The terms of this contract concern not just the beneficiary but also obligations tied to the Sterling estate." The man's eyes lingered on me, sharp and calculating. I realized I had only seconds to react. Obedience alone would not save me. I straightened, ears subtly flattened, tail coiled under my coat, mind racing. "Sir," I said carefully, voice even, "I assure you that I've been following every instruction, attending to my duties with the utmost care. Snowball and well, he can vouch for my diligence in ways no ordinary testimony could." The man raised an eyebrow, lips twitching in a faint, incredulous smile. Elizabeth's gaze flicked between us, calculating. The room was a battlefield of wits, obedience, and subtle charm. I drew on every lesson from the villa: precise observation, timing, and subtle misdirection. I highlighted minor successes, loyalty gestures, and Snowball's chaotic assistance, all while maintaining a posture of complete humility. The man paused, scrutinizing me, then, unexpectedly, leaned back, a small smirk appearing. "Interesting. You might have more resourcefulness than I expected. Perhaps there is value here beyond the obvious." Relief surged through me, tail twitching in subtle victory. But before I could relax, the envelope fluttered in the wind from the open window. A hidden page, previously unnoticed, revealed a clause far more dangerous. The contract granted the third-party authority to make unilateral decisions concerning both my future and Elizabeth's estate. I froze, ears pricked, tail taut. For the first time, I realized that survival might depend on more than obedience or cleverness. It could require discovering a hidden strength, a resource within myself that I had yet to recognize. Elizabeth's eyes narrowed, gaze fixed on mine. The man's smirk widened, and Snowball, tail flicking impatiently, seemed to sense the tension, letting out a sharp, warning hiss. The next move, mine, theirs, or perhaps fate itself, was uncertain. And for the first time, I understood that the villa's intricate game of loyalty, power, and subtle chaos had only just begun. The villa felt quieter than usual that morning, the kind of stillness that hid tension beneath its polished surface. Snowball stretched lazily on the windowsill, golden eyes half closed, yet somehow alert to everything. I watched him, wondering if he sensed the subtle shifts in the household as keenly as I did. Commentary. Finally, some calm before the storm. Or is it? Also, yes, Pawn, don't get too comfortable. Elizabeth summoned me for tea in the garden. Her expression, calm as ever, held something softer today. Perhaps it was a glint of curiosity, or respect, behind the cool precision she always wore like armor. You've adapted, she said, voice measured. You're unpredictable, in a useful way. I felt my ears twitch, with a mix of pride and caution. Unpredictable was a dangerous compliment. Before I could reply, Liam appeared, storming across the lawn with a tension that made the air vibrate. Why is Snowball following him everywhere? He demanded, pointing at me. He's supposed to be with me. I froze, hands raised in a mock surrender. Snowball mewed, brushing against my legs, clearly oblivious to human squabbles, or perhaps reveling in them. I knelt, stroking Snowball behind the ears, letting him decide where to linger. Liam's frown deepened, yet there was a subtle shift. He realized that controlling Snowball, or me, wasn't entirely possible. Then came a whispered warning from Cecilia, who appeared unexpectedly at the garden gate. Someone's spreading rumors about you, the boy. Misperceptions, jealousy, they're testing loyalties. The whispers were true. Staff members, even minor nobles attending the villa occasionally, were watching, testing, and whispering. But unlike before, their scrutiny didn't leave me paralyzed. I moved with confidence, subtly correcting misperceptions through small acts, fetching tea for the right person, saving a knocked-over flower arrangement, even letting Snowball sit proudly on Elizabeth's shoulder during a moment of minor chaos. Commentary. Cat-mediated diplomacy. Brilliant. Pawn, you're learning. Elizabeth observed all of this quietly, her gaze lingering a moment longer than usual. When she finally spoke, it was measured but unmistakable. You've begun to build trust, on your own terms. Not because I assigned it, but because you earned it. My heart leapt, ears flattening in reflexive surprise. Snowball purred, brushing my hand, a small but unmistakable seal of approval.
Commentary. Look at that.
Pawn gaining independent power while staying under the radar. Dangerous and adorable. Yet even amidst trust and subtle alliances, I sensed danger lurking in misperceptions. One careless comment, one misinterpreted action, could unravel bonds I had only begun to weave. And I understood that loyalty, jealousy, and affection were intertwined, threads delicate, sharp, and unpredictable. Like Snowball, one false move could scratch, but one careful touch could forge something lasting.